Feelings come and go, like clouds in the sky. Conscious breathing is my anchor. Thich Nhat Hanh.
Hi everyone, I want to share an informational video topic today with you, and that is how to process deep feelings. I want to start with a quote by Freud. "Unexpressed emotions will never die. They are buried alive and will come forth later in uglier ways." I also want to express another quote by Bruce Lee. "Emotion can be the enemy. If you give in to your emotion, you lose yourself. You must be one with your emotions because the body follows the mind." So before I start the list, you may be wondering, what's the difference between my emotion and my feeling? The answer is that when we're experiencing an emotion, it's a physiological response to a stimulus. If you see a snake in a garden, you may be struck with cortisol. You may have tunnel vision, thinking of survival methods. You may have increased heart rate, shortness of breath. And so those are some of the physiological things that are the emotion of fear, visceral fear. The next thing is feelings. Feelings is how we mentally process what happened to us when we had the emotion during the event that happened. Feelings can take longer to process. They can be a mental process that happens over several years. And I'm going to get back to that in a second. So how to process deep feelings. Step 1, recognize the feeling and name it. A lot of times when we're overwhelmed, we're having intense reactivity, we may not know exactly what we're feeling. Some people simplify this to happy, sad, mad, or even more simple, happy, sad, because many people see anger as a cover emotion for sad. In parts work, in the IFS modality of therapy, this would be called a protector part that comes in to rescue us. The anger would come in to rescue us from the deeper feeling of insecurity or terror or loss or whatever the deeper feeling is. So you may have to dig through several emotions, but once you can get to that core emotion that's beyond the cover emotion, you want to name what it is. So maybe that is sadness, a deep sadness, or even guilt, shame, fear, pain, loss, grief. So step 2 is connect it to a stimulus or event. And then I'm going to flip that on you. So you're going to say, when was the first time I experienced this? And your mind will go to the most recent event where you experienced this event, this situation. But there's this theorist named Adler who says that every stimulus is actually just a means for us to experience feelings or emotions that we already have stored within us and have not processed. So you may be angry at someone today, but it may actually be a deeper, older anger festering from a longer held issue within you that you have not looked at. So the real question then is to, when was the first time I can think of that I felt this feeling? And then here's to go even deeper. All feelings arise from within us. The truth is that feeling already was there. Even if the snake is in the garden and we are reacting to the emotion of visceral fear. We then may have feelings of worry or anxiety or overthinking for the rest of the day, or feelings of dread. So then we have to look at, before any of the events, even the ones we can think of earliest, what within us may have been fearful from an even younger point, before any of these traumas that we can remember in a real way. So that gets to not even looking for the chicken or the egg, but just really locating that original experience, if you can understand what I'm saying, that goes beyond an event. Maybe you can remember being 2 years old and feeling very upset and angry about not getting your pacifier because it was being taken from you. But those feelings already were within you as a 2-year-old, and maybe you can then look at some of the circumstances that were within your toddlerhood that were making you feel so obsessive over your pacifier. So that gets very psychological and layered. Okay, so then the next step is safe expression containers. Some people like to deal with anger in ways that can have a bodily release. Some people like excessive exercise or intense exercise, vigorous exercise where you're sweating, or even just a really long walk could do the trick. Also, I enjoy swimming because it is sort of like an isolation chamber experience where you can't hear really, you can't listen to headphones, and you're just seeing the water and you just have your thoughts, and it's a good way to detach from those thoughts. But other ways are rage room, where people go and you can pay to like sort of smash things around. I think that's healthy. One thing you can do at home is just take a pillow and you can either scream into it or release energy with like, you could take like a stick or something and hit it, just to get the intensity out of you. Or even just like taking the pillow and just like throwing it across the room to get some of these, because a lot of times when we're overwhelmed, there's excess cortisol in our body, which causes a lot of excess adrenaline. So you may have overexcitability that you're not realizing. Another way is just therapy, especially with feelings of depression, which may be underneath those feelings of anger. And friendship, and of course romantic relationships and family, and also spirituality, finding a spiritual figure or belief system that works for you can be really helpful, even if it's something more mental like Zen, which I was talking about this week. Also, creative self-expression. I really recommend getting into some art therapy because we're all born artists, as Picasso said, and the trouble is that not many of us remain that way. So doing some art, even as that younger self that was suffering, perhaps that child, that baby toddler who didn't get the pacifier but was really upset about the dynamics within the household and couldn't express it, could only express it through the sort of funnel of the pacifier experience. Okay, so doing art from the inner child is what I'm talking about, really. Okay, the next step is to let it move through you. I recommend exercise and movement. And that is really the main recommendation here for this one. Like so many of us don't realize that feelings sit in our bodies, and there's a lot of ways to do movement. You don't have to overexert yourself. You don't have to hurt yourself. You don't have to do something that is boring. But doing something where the blood flow gets moving and the organs can be cleansed and you can detoxify. One really good thing is to do, if you are into yoga, an inversion, like handstand or a headstand, or even just plow pose that you then lift your legs above your head. I forgot the term for it, but anyway. So moving your body is something that works really well to help you move energy through you, besides those sort of other intense ways that I mentioned before. Number 6, instead of transmitting to others outside of safe spaces, such as a therapist or a life coach or friend that might be able to hold space for your feelings, imagine letting it float away like a balloon. So this has to do with visualization. So if you can imagine this feeling being encased within a latex balloon type structure that is actually air, so it gives less power to the feeling also, that it's just this airy thing. And then imagine yourself holding it, the string of the balloon, and then letting it go. And that's a really beautiful visualization that I really recommend. Okay, the next step is to become the witness and detach, which is from Buddhism. And when we do that, we can see the emotions and feelings from a once removed place and not judge ourselves, which is the worst part of having intense feelings such as rage or extreme anxiety or sadness, is that we may judge ourselves and think, oh my gosh, I should be happy, I shouldn't be like this. So that has to do with self-compassion and realizing that life is suffering. And it's also about how we manage that suffering, how we find peace within the chaos. Also, the next step is to let go of self-judgment, which I think I was sort of hinting at. So before I say that, movies and music can be a great way to experience feelings that we've not been able to let ourselves have. There may be feelings that it was inappropriate to have within our society, our family, or our social group, or even a religious group, feelings that it was deemed not okay to have. And sometimes watching somebody else go through similar experiences or feel similar feelings within the context of film or within the energy of music can be a great way to exercise, to literally exercise like a demonic thing, those intense feelings. Also looking at art or experiential performance art or theater, you know, because then you can become the voyeur instead of being caught up in it. And so, yeah, the last step was let go of self-judgment, because when we can let go of judging ourselves for having these intense feelings, we can realize that all the world's a stage and all its men and women merely players, which is what Shakespeare said. And if you think of Greek tragedy and the masks that they wore in the stadiums when they did the theater, they had the happy mask and the sad mask and these like very like simplified big emotions. But that's sort of what we do here on Earth, not just in imagination land. And we act out these things. We're all just sort of playing it out by ear, and that entails reacting to things that happen. And it becomes our imperative as we mature in our lives, or as we grow or age, that we find ways to experience peace and to experience joy and love, no matter what the circumstance, no matter what the past has been, or no matter what fears of the future we may have, and to let those feelings arise within us and fall like a wave falling and passing onto the shore. My personal experience with this is that for much of my life, I held deep feelings within me and was afraid to express them, as I said in the video, not only to myself but others. I spent a lot of my life not looking at things that were hard, not dealing with deep-seated issues of anxiety and depression in a real head-on way. And I also felt numb for a lot of my life. So my message is that it's okay to feel your feelings, and it's okay to let them pass through you, and then to realize that we're all human beings and we're all just doing the best we can.